I think we'll probably get started now. Well, thank you so much for coming this morning. We have an all-star group of panelists here. And the goal of this morning is to really talk about the 8th and 9th grade experience as a special one, a transformative one, and one that really completes the country school journey. My name is Lauren Romeo. I'm a member of our upper school here. I've been on campus for this is my 23rd year, so a long time. I've also been a parent. I started here as an apprentice years ago, so I've served lots of different roles here. But obviously, there's something that keeps me coming back for multiple decades. And really, it's the kids. They're pretty remarkable. And even more so as they get older and they take the reins as leaders here on campus. So you'll hear from some of our students today, as well as parents and some faculty members. I'm going to allow everyone to introduce themselves. Parents, if you could just introduce yourself and your children, and maybe where they are in their educational journey. Students, grade level, name, and then faculty members, name and role on campus.
Hi, my name is Fel Herdig. I have 3 kids that went to country school. My daughter went from here to St. Luke's to Villanova. She's a nurse in New York City. My son went from here to Hotchkiss and is now a junior at Brown. And my other son went from here to Westminster, where he's a junior. And my wife went here, class of '86.
I'm Ryan Brooks. I've got 3 children. Our youngest is Henry, who's in 4th grade here at Country School. And then we have Chase, who's a current 9th grader here at Country School. And then we have a daughter, Avery, who graduated from Country School last year, and she's a reclassing 9th grader at Taft.
Hi, I'm Max Tangen. I'm in 9th grade at NCCS. And I started when I was in kindergarten, and I've loved the journey so far.
Hi, I'm Cecilia Thompson, and I'm a 9th grader here at New Canaan Country School, and I started in 3rd grade.
Hi, I'm Liz Carroll, and this is my 16th year at the school. I am an upper school English and history teacher and also a past parent.
Hi, good morning. My name is Marshall Johnson. I'm actually an alum of Country School from the class of 2004. I am the current social studies department head, and then I'm also an 8th grade advisor and 9th grade instructor in social studies.
Good morning. I'm Rashawn Richards. I'm the director of studies. This is my 7th year at New Canaan Country School, and I'm the parent of 3 children here. My oldest, who's a current 9th grader.
Thank you, my friend. All right, it's going to involve a little bit of mic jockeying here, so thank you in advance. We have questions that are ones that are typical that parents would like to better understand, but if you also have questions, especially in response to some of what you're hearing, please do feel free to raise your hand. The first question is for Sean regarding educational philosophy, and the question is, our educational philosophy holds that how we teach is as important as what we teach, and that rehearsals are more important than performances. How does this philosophy shape 8th and 9th grade? And how does it prepare students for high schools, where the culture may be very different? If you could talk about the arc from 8th to 9th grade, how does 8th grade set the foundation, and how does 9th grade complete it?
Thanks, Lauren. So I think foundation is a very good word, really to think about the whole journey, and especially our beginners through 8th grade. That part of the journey really does set a foundation, and a lot of this aligns to what we know today about how human beings develop and how much brain development activity is happening, especially in those ages 12 to 14. And what's wonderful about our school having a 9th grade is that we get to see students through that kind of human development cycle. And so they're, biologically, but also intellectually and socially, all of these things are coming to a true turning point in their development. And for them to be able to kind of complete their foundation, but then launch into their 9th grade lives here at Country School is a really special opportunity. And I think it's also a rare opportunity to kind of be able to go on to their, their secondary schools, having already been like more complete as a human being. So I think that very much aligns not only with how country school has operated for a very long time, but is always and continually confirmed by just the science of how human beings develop.
Thank you. So our next question is for our friends Cecilia and Max. So the first question is, you started 9th grade with the OAT trip, the outdoor action trip. What happened on that trip that set the tone for your year? Cecilia, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, definitely we were kind of in the middle of nowhere in the woods for like 3 days, and I think it set the tone in a way that all of us had to work together in a way that we might not do here at school, just because we had to like make tents together and we had to wash the dishes and we had to go on hikes. So I think it really just hammered in how our 9th grade was going to be a community, and the 9th grade community this year is definitely one that's built on trust and helpfulness and loyalty. So I think that's how the OAT trip affected the 9th grade.
Max, tell us about a moment this year when you felt genuinely stretched, when something was harder than you expected. What was it, and how did you handle it?
Well, it's kind of funny that you bring it up right now because last week was actually quite a difficult week, I felt. There was many things going on. We had tests, projects, essays that we had to turn in, and I definitely felt a bit overwhelmed. But I was sort of able to work through everything one by one, just sort of think about what to hit first, and once that's sort of over and done with, I get to keep going. And it's sort of funny because a thought came to me last week about sort of embracing the struggle of things, and how, I mean, this is my last year at NCCS, and I get to sort of embrace the fun moments like OAT, and then also sort of need to find a way to push through the more difficult moments when there's a higher workload and stuff. And I just sort of want to look towards that with sort of a positive mindset, and saying that all these skills that my teachers are giving me, even when it's studying or researching for a paper, it's really setting me up for my academic career later. And just really putting in the work this last week to get through assignments one by one, and then just having a more relaxed week this week when I don't have as many tests and stuff. So yeah, just embracing the workload, definitely.
So embracing the struggle as much as the good moments. I'm still learning that lesson personally. Okay, question for both of you. Looking back at 8th grade, how do you feel like that year prepared you for what you're doing now? Cece, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, 8th grade is definitely sort of the thing that helps you transition into a high schooler. So from my perspective, all the stuff we did in 8th grade was sort of an easier version of what we do in 9th grade. It's just like a really good foundational thing. All the stuff we do in history this year, like writing essays and taking geography tests and quizzes and stuff like that, we did in 8th grade, but on a smaller scale. So I really loved that sort of like growth, because you're really doing the same thing just at a different level. So I think that's how 8th grade prepared me for 9th grade. It just sort of builds off of what you learned the year previous.
Yeah, totally. And if I was to give a certain example, it'd probably be American Forum, which was the culminating history research project where we researched about a topic in sort of recent American history from the world wars to pretty much the present. And then we wrote a paper on our topic and then delivered a speech in front of the entire upper school. And it really it pushed us back then we were 8th graders, but it pushed us to really research and then use our writing skills to write an essay on that, a research paper, and then use our public speaking skills, which we've been developing over the many grades at NCCS. I mean, public speaking is a very centered theme at NCCS and to deliver our paper. And now in ninth grade, we have presentations we have to give and papers we have to write, and that right now we even have a history research paper that we're writing now. And so the skills I learned from American Forum have also really set me up for ninth grade.
Thank you both. You're amazingly articulate. All right, so for our fabulous parents here, question. As you reflect on your child's journey through country school, what word or phrase might you use to describe their experience? And what factors inform your choice to have your child or children stay for ninth grade? Val, shall we start with you?
Okay, I'm starting. So I think part of it obviously has to do with the school, but also just the child, just the growth and development they go through while they're here, how much they mature. One of the things I love about having a ninth grade experience is having them rooted in a place when developmentally they're going through so much. From 7th to ninth grade, I don't know a lot about child development, but I've seen what my kids have gone through, and I know there's a lot of growth that's going on during those years, and I like the continuity of them being here through ninth grade. So it's both what the school gave them, and it's also just kind of who they are as human beings. It's just kind of that time period of being here and stable that whole time that I loved.
I would agree with that. I think it's a really fortifying year for the kids, and Rashawn touched on this too. In retrospect, I can now appreciate what a developmental jump these kids are going through. You know, when you're 14 and 15, you're very much straddling the line between being a kid and also, you know, being exposed to older themes. And for them to be able to be in this place where, you know, you look out the window and there's the music teacher with her banjo and the little kids holding hands and strolling behind. That's very grounding, I think, for a 14 and 15-year-old kid to be in that type of environment. They're also with teachers who have known them and have seen their full arc. And I think that's really important. And just give them a chance to kind of continue flexing those muscles that they've learned, the public speaking, the researching. They're doing this now at a stepped up level, at a real high school level, but they're doing it in such a warm environment. And the factors that went into our decision, I would say it was primarily driven by our kids. Our daughter was in 8th grade, and she started the secondary school process looking at high schools. She did all her interviews, she took all her SSATs, and then right around this time of year, she said, you know what, I don't think I'm ready to leave country school. I want to stay. The ninth graders look like they're having fun. I'm not ready to go. And on our end, we were thrilled because we had come to realize that she would probably go to boarding school. Our current ninth grade son also will probably go to boarding school, and having her home for another year was really special and important to us. So those were our factors.
I just want to add, you touched on one thing I want to add also, was this whole idea that when you stay at a ninth grade program, you end up being more mature earlier, a leader earlier, and staying younger longer. So you don't have the pressures of a high school, whether that's public, private, boarding school, what have you. But as a ninth grader here, you get the chance to really step out and shine and lead a class in a way that you wouldn't get if you were just a ninth grader in a high school that goes all the way through 12th. And you don't also have all those other pressures socially that come along with it, which I think also is a real benefit to the kids.
I realize I'm probably not supposed to add my own message here, but I can't help but say that one of the things I love about ninth grade, and one of the things I talk about very frequently as parents, is the fact that at ninth grade at country school, our student leaders are the oldest and most savvy on campus, versus on many high school campuses, freshmen are the youngest and least savvy and still trying to figure out the environment while they're also figuring out what it looks like to handle a high school load. And the way that that translates is that they're really bold and they step into that position of leadership in the most remarkable ways. One of my favorite visuals was a student years ago. His name was Rhett Ziegler. And every time the youngest students following a teacher playing banjo would walk by, he would high five every single one of them and ask them what their name was. And that's what our ninth graders are like on campus. That's how they show up. And when I saw these two remarkable young people giving campus tours last week, I was thinking about my daughter's own journey. She's a junior in high school right now and has been muscling her way, and she's a very persistent young individual, but dying to be an admissions ambassador. And I think she finally convinced the admissions director over at GFA that, all right, she can handle it as a junior and has been practicing all year. But here these two ninth graders are as admissions ambassadors here, and they're just knocking it out of the park because they're pushed into roles that they might not naturally assume as freshmen. So sorry, I just had to add that. Okay, our next question is for Sean, and don't worry, we will get to Liz Carroll and Marshall Johnson very quickly. But this question is in relation to math. And this year you've stepped into the role as math department chair. So walk us through the math options available in 8th and 9th grade. How do you determine placement, and what does the range look like from algebra through more advanced courses? And how do you and we at Country School ensure each student is genuinely challenged at the right level?
Sure. So I guess I'll start from, what types of math courses our students are in grade 8 and in grade 8 and grade 9. So typically, we have everything ranging from an Algebra 1 experience that certainly all 8th graders go through. We have accelerated versions of those classes as well, which are a combination of going more deeply into topics as well as some of the pace with which those subject areas and those courses move. We also teach geometry, and students here typically finish geometry by the end of their 9th grade. Many students are in a geometry honors class, which tracks in a similar way as our accelerated sections. And then every couple of years or so, we have some students that end up taking a Algebra 2 level class because of their both content readiness, but also their student disposition readiness. I think generally with this level of math, algebra, geometry, algebra 2, trigonometry, there's a certain level of abstraction and understanding of abstraction, you both could speak to this, that's necessary. And even having all the computational skills doesn't always ensure that a person is ready to think in that abstract. And sometimes that just comes with lived life experience, to think that, that X, which used to be the letter X from the alphabet, and then for a while was your multiplication symbol. Oh, but now it's a variable that can represent anything. And, maybe all of you, we don't think about these things anymore because it was so long ago. But that's a huge jump for the brain and your understanding to be able to make as far as thinking through those things. So we're always considering, again, content readiness, student readiness, and then other just typical indicators, teacher recommendation, past performance, all the types of indicators that would ensure that we have a thorough and very reflective and responsive placement process. Did I answer all components of your questions?
You did. Thank you.
Super.
All right, Liz. We're going to ask you a question about the 8th to 9th grade transition. You teach students in both 8th and 9th grade and have for a very long time. Walk us through that transition. What's different about how students think, write, and engage with ideas by the end of 9th grade?
Absolutely. It's really a remarkable difference. And you see it almost right at the beginning of 9th grade. There's this great leap in maturity and often height as well for some of our students. When they come back after 8th grade, you sort of say, and their voices have changed, or, they're perched on this, the precipice of adolescence. And it's really just such a joy to see them then follow through and build. I would say that we really emphasize writing skills, and independent writing skills. A lot of eighth grade, we're helping to build stamina in writing. We're helping them to have an independent idea and then develop that idea and sustain an argument through the course of a 5-paragraph essay. And that's harder for some students than others. Supplying evidence, and we drill it on the grammar. I actually love teaching grammar. And it pays off, doesn't it? Yes. In 9th grade, I feel as if it's really a time when they're finding their voice. And I think that is a metaphor that can extend to so many areas of the 9th grade year. So in English class, yes, they know how to do the mechanics of writing. They know how to build an argument. But there's this kind of explosion in personal expression. And we really see that. I think we're going to talk about this, I believe, speeches later. But you see that in both expository and personal and creative pieces that they're able to write in 9th grade. Yeah.
And if I could just add one thing, I'm so sorry. But I was working with a student last week on her Catcher in the Rye essay, and she was tossing back a few ideas for her thesis, and the one that she settled on was Holden moving through the 5 stages of grief, which I just thought was brilliant. So we sort of thought about the trajectory of how that would develop. But these are the types of ideas that our 9th graders are bringing to the table. And that was one that she generated entirely on her own, and I thought was so clever. Marshall. Also regarding the 8th to 9th transition, if you could talk about the progression from 8th to 9th grade, what shifts in terms of intellectual rigor and independence, and what are you watching for in 8th grade that tells you that a student is ready for 9th?
It's so fun. I've been teaching 8th and 9th grade for the last at least like 4 or 5 years. This is my, I think, 11th year at country school. And I think it's really special when you can, I also taught 7 to 8, and you can definitely see a huge transition in students when they come into the upper school at the beginning of 7th grade into 8th grade. But to watch them from 8 to 9, like you're really watching like a fighter jet like take off. And I'm not exaggerating that. Like, beginning of the fall in 8th grade versus the spring of 9th grade, like you will have spent almost 2 years with a kid. And so it's really, really rewarding just to watch them kind of, let go in some ways, and other ways like hone in on the things that they care about most in their learning. I'd say for me, one of the biggest qualifiers for someone who's really ready for 9th grade is someone who's given up the perfectionism a little bit. I think in 8th grade, we teach an American history course. It's really post-Civil War all the way through the Cold War, and actually maybe even beyond. But I think there's a tendency in 8th grade to try to like hyper-memorize and try to get every little detail like locked in stone so you can just regurgitate it on the page. In 9th grade, that starts to go away a little bit, and it's much more about the big ideas. It's about, we have a global studies course in 9th grade, but it's about big picture concepts. It's about looking at world concepts and I don't know what I'm really trying to say here, but like recurring themes, I guess, that you can see across the globe, regardless of time and space. The kids are just kind of able to do it because they're not trying to hyper-focus on every little thing anymore. So it's so much more rewarding as a 9th grade teacher because you can have like real-world conversations with them. They're genuinely curious, and they're drawing, connections in ways that you wouldn't necessarily see from an 8th grader because they're trying to get it right. I don't know if that made any sense, but...
It did.
Can I pipe one more thing in on that?
Absolutely.
And that is that it's this opportunity to stretch, and I mentioned finding your voice. It's true across every class, and to be able, yes, they would be doing that at a school any 9th grade year. Obviously, there's growth, but to be able to have this safe environment, to be able to experiment with who am I and what do I really think, I feel as if having this, being here to do that is unique.
I agree. I always love when, especially you see a messier adolescent move into their 9th grade here, and to know that it's still so managed and supported because we know them so well. It's a gift in so many ways for a 9th grader who's free to experiment, but also knows that the safety nets are there to catch them should they fall, which hopefully they won't. But we all know that's very much part of the journey. Okay, for Ryan, Marie, and Fel, who was your child when they entered the upper school in grade 7, and who were they when they walked across the stage at grade 9 commencement? Would that transformation have been complete without the 9th grade year? And when your child transitioned to high school, in what ways were they most ready academically, socially, or in terms of confidence?
Can we go first?
Yes.
Okay. So I got permission last night to share all this because my daughter's living with us right now until she moves into the city in a few weeks. So when my daughter at least came into 7th grade, she had very low self-esteem. She was really kind of struggling, and the environment here really allowed her to. She had teachers that cared about her. She was socially she was fine, but she was really kind of trying to find her way in life. She was not in the best place, but the school did an amazing job of just supporting her both from um, just attention from teachers, from the community around her, that allowed her to grow to a place. By the time she graduated from 9th, she went to St. Luke's. She couldn't have been better prepared. She was confident and felt very ready to kind of move on to the next part of her journey. So, I mean, just an incredible amount of growth for her over those years. And I think I said it earlier, but I wouldn't wanted, we didn't look to go anywhere else for 9th grade, but she should not have gone somewhere else for 9th grade. It was the right thing to stay here. And the nice thing I like about also is that the 9th grade, at least for her class, it shrunk down a little bit, and that all of a sudden opened up opportunities for totally different relationships to develop. You got to know different people in the class, somebody who you knew since 2nd grade, but you're like, I don't know who this person is, even though it's not a huge class. So there kind of all of a sudden you get this new connective tissue across the class that you didn't have before. So I think some people look and say, wait, we're losing some really important people, but then you get a chance to meet all these other new people as well. So I think it's a really important part of the journey. And I think my other two sons, same thing. They were totally prepared when they left here to go on to their schools, both academically, socially, confidence-wise. We also, my son, he was not looking to leave. My wife and I both went to the same boarding school, and we took our youngest son to Westminster just for, I think it was a family day or whatever, and the head of the admission said, well, I'll just talk to him. It's not going to be an interview, but we'll just talk to him. So he spoke to him, and he fell flat on his face. He was totally unprepared in 8th grade to have an interview in a boarding school, and plenty of other kids would do fine, but that was not his strong suit. And by the time he got there a year later, after all the growth in 9th grade, he was totally prepared for that interview, confident, shook hands, looked somebody in the eye. He's done well in classes, so. I don't know, did I answer that question? I just ramble all over the place.
I love the rambling.
Okay, all right. Hopefully it'll be more concise.
I'll try. I don't know. Okay, our daughter Avery, when she came into 7th grade, she was, she was a hot mess. I mean, she's like a blowtorch. She's a kid who just has so much energy. She's kind of just all over the place. And she has consolidated into this. I will never forget, actually. One of the beautiful things about the 9th grade graduation is every child goes up to receive their diploma, and the head of upper school gives a speech about that child. And it's incredibly insightful. And the speech about Avery started with, Avery is a force of nature in the best possible way. And I think that describes kind of her trajectory through the upper school, which is the teachers and her peers and the experience helped shape her and harness her energy into something that's like really productive and mature and polished, and having this final year to kind of buff and shine her and just consolidate was really instrumental in her ability to then go off to boarding school and really thrive. I loved what you said, Fel, about the social piece. The class does get smaller in 9th grade, and that's a question I think on a lot of minds of parents is, how does that work, and who's staying, and nobody really knows what anyone else is really doing, and if things change, plans change. And I will say that it is a really good opportunity for the kids to stretch themselves on friendships. And one thing I observed last year that I loved was that the boys and the girls became really good friends. And Avery would count some of the boys as her closest friends, and in a very platonic, like healthy way. And the other thing I would suggest, no matter where your child ends up for ninth grade, is having sort of other options for friend groups. You know, my kids play sports here in town in New Canaan, and so they kind of they have their country school friends, they have their town friends, they have their friends from other activities that they do. And I feel like as a teenager, it's always nice to have different friend groups that you can draw from, you know, in if you need that outlet. Um, Finally, I think one of the things that really helped prepare Avery for boarding school was her relationship with her teachers. The ninth graders become very close with their teachers here. And I remember last year, Avery was having, you know, as teenage girls are prone to do, like little friendship squabbles. And I said, "Oh, gosh, I'm so sorry. What's your plan? How are you going to deal with that?" And "Do you need help?" And she said, "Mom, I already made an appointment with Miss Romeo to talk about this. She knows the players much better than you do, so like the key players. So, you know, but knowing that she can go to Lauren for a friendship squabble, or she can talk to you know, her teachers about whatever's on her mind, that's an incredible resource. Being able to advocate for yourself and get help, you know, that's something that's really honed, I think, in the ninth grade year.
I love settling friendship squabbles, mostly because I can reflect back on all of many of them when I was growing up. Thank you. So another question for Ryan, Marie, and Fel. When you think back about ninth grade in relation to your own children, what do you think are the can't miss experiences? And if you think about a moment or two, how do you think that they really helped contribute to their overall growth? So that could be anything from expanded studies to OAT, or just a moment where they're bonding in advisory. So a can't miss experience that you really think helped inform their growth.
I think part of it is the trips. My daughter joked last night, she's like, "I have friends of other schools. They're like, why is your school always pushing you guys outside?" And so her trip, she went to the Washington State, her ninth grade year, and she loved it. Got to actually room people who weren't her friends, and but still had a great time. Had a wonderful experience. My son went to Florida on, I think, a marine biology trip, maybe. Is that the one it was? Yeah. And he loved that. Same thing, he roomed with somebody he wasn't normally friends with. Had an amazing time. My son Benny didn't get to go because it was COVID year, but so be it. I think those are big experiences for them. Another great thing I loved about ninth grade for my son Ben was he ended up being the captain of the cross country team, and he was hands down the slowest runner on the team. He was not a good runner, but they just loved how he led, and so I just loved that he was in an environment where they said, we don't need to have the best athlete be the best leader for the team. We need to have the person who at that time seemed to be somebody who would be somebody they liked and looked up to, and so I love that you're in an environment where that's recognized, and that also carried weight, which I loved. So.
You stole my answer. The expanded studies
sorry.
was the best moment, I think, for Avery last year. They went to Yellowstone, and it was more than just the trip. The trip was incredible, and they have these little houses where the boys stay in one house and the girls stay in one house. They go grocery shopping together. They buy their food for the week, and you know, that's a whole thing. And but it was also the stuff that went around the trip. So there was a big thing where all the kids were playing cards last year, and so they realized that not everyone knows how to play poker. So they had, just for the Yellowstone group, they had like this bonding night before they went, where they all learned, you know, some of them taught the other ones how to play poker, so that everyone could hang on the trip. And I thought that was really fun. So that, what else? Oh, and the other thing that you get to do as a ninth grader is you get these ninth grade privileges. And there's a lot of discussion about what these will be, and they get to sort of come up with options and ideas and then present them. You know, we want to have dress down Fridays, or we want to use the toaster in the cafeteria. And our kids last year chose extra time with their buddies. And the ninth graders are buddies with the beginners, the youngest kids on campus. And that's how they wanted to spend their free time, was with the youngest kids on the campus, hanging out with them. I thought that was really special.
Thank you. They also chose baking, which was adorable. We had some run-ins with the oven here. But the fact that that's how they want to spend their time, is baking together, is another testament to just sort of how sweetly balanced they are in terms of, you know, navigating between high school but in an elementary environment. All right, question for Liz and Marshall. So Liz, if you could talk about the This I Believe project, what does it accomplish and reveal about what students have become?
Of course. So the This I Believe project is, I think, in now its second or third decade at the school. It's a program in which students write a personal essay that they then practice and deliver as an accomplished speech. It's sort of the culmination of the public speaking focus that we have at NCCS that Max referred to earlier. It's hard for ninth graders sometimes to look inside and find what is special. I always tell students, write the speech that only you could write. For some students, that's going to be about being cut from the team and working hard and getting back on the team and resilience and success. Other students will really take the opportunity to look inside and I remember one student got up and talked about how he was lazy and how he avoided work and how now as a ninth grader he realized what an effect it had on him. Some of these are really self-reflective and vulnerable. Other students will talk about their beliefs about the way that people should treat each other. So they're often very much character-based, but they're personal essays brought to life. And it's really nice because in recent years we've been enlisting teachers from all around the faculty to help coach and mentor students as they prepare for their speech. So sometimes it's an opportunity for them to reconnect with a teacher that they had in an earlier year. We have This I Believe speeches this afternoon, so we're all really excited about that.
Thank you. Marshall, tell us about expanded studies. We've heard a little bit from Fel and Ryan Marie about that, but these are immersive ninth grade trips. What do these accomplish? And you and Liz, by the way, run a trip together. So what do you think these trips accomplish that couldn't necessarily happen in a traditional classroom?
So actually, full disclosure, I'm pretty new to the Expanded Studies program. I actually have to give a lot of credit to Liz. She has effectively carried the baton on a trip that might actually be the oldest running, which is a civil rights focused trip. In recent years, Expanded Studies, I'll back up. The way it works is that ninth graders have some choice. There's usually 2, maybe sometimes 3 offerings from teachers that focus on very different aspects of the curriculum. So science tends to be usually one offering, and then one more kind of humanities, social studies focus tends to be the other. But trips have included everything from visits to the Gettysburg Memorial to Washington, D.C. trips, all the way down to the Deep South, out to Montana, to the Everglades. We've gone all over. So one that I've been fortunate to be a part of in recent years is the Civil Rights Expanded Studies course. So for whatever you sign up for, it's a 6th course. It's ungraded, but it's factored into the schedule. Students meet with their teachers, and because it's ungraded, there's no assessments. It's very open-ended, and it's very reflective. And certainly for when you're talking about civil rights and human rights in American history, I mean, you've got to be vulnerable and you got to be honest. And so it's been really fun to kind of experience that and see it. The trip itself is a blast. I mean, we've been to New Orleans, we've been to Selma, we've been to Montgomery, been to Memphis at various points. We've been staying in like floating cabins in the bayou. We're staying in the heart of New Orleans, like we're all over. But it's a wonderful experience. And I think depending on the year, you really you know, it's tough topic material, but I was profoundly impacted by my first trip from Selma to Montgomery. As a teacher of that time period, I mean, it was truly, truly impactful to walk across, you know, the Edward Pettus Bridge and to kind of feel, you know, even just like a little piece of what people experience. So can't speak highly enough about it. It's a wonderful opportunity, and you've got great people leading those trips. So
Thank you. A question for both Liz and Marshall. If you're to think about these two signature experiences, how do you think that they connect to other aspects of what students are doing or to the ninth grade experience?
Yeah, well, Marshall just talked about how a lot of these are tied in with academic. They start with academics. I want to circle back to something that Fel was talking about earlier, and that is leadership opportunities. One of the signature moments for the ninth grade is the OAT trip, the outdoor action trip, which Cecilia was talking about. There is a student, I just want to talk about his trajectory. This kid was ready to leave after 8th grade. He was just kind of done. And honestly, I taught him in 8th grade. He was a decent student, but kind of unremarkable. Something clicked in on the OAT trip. The hiking groups came back after scaling several Adirondack peaks and were asked to reflect. And he got up there and he spoke for his group, a small group of 8. And he said, you know what, guys? You know what this teaches us? We can do hard things. The entire 9th grade stood up. This is at a campfire, so yeah, applauding. Yes, we can do hard things. Elections were held about a month later for student body president. Guess who won student body president? This student. And he just stepped into himself. I talked earlier about finding your voice. This was a student who found his place in 9th grade as a leader. And guess what? He went on to become student body president of his high school. And do you think it's going to stop there? I don't think so. I don't think so. And Marshall, you were just mentioning another student who was student body president here and went on to become student body president of someplace.
I think it's so interesting. Again, selfishly, as like an 8th to 9th grade teacher, I mean, it's like watching a movie. You're like invested in the characters. You know what I mean? Like you can't help yourself as a teacher or a viewer. You're like, all right, I'm rooting for you. But you know, certainly when they leave 9th grade, you have a pretty good sense of the type of young person they've become and the type of things they're going to do. And it's so rewarding as alums when they come back. You know, I think it's this week, we've got like a Thanksgiving alumni event. And every year, without fail, the recent 9th graders, like that most recent group, they're the first kids back through the door. Those are also the kids that are most involved in their class long term. They're the best at kind of rallying people in their class to donate and to take an active role. And so, you know, as an alum myself, it's just so fun to see them come back through the door. Right around Thanksgiving, again, it'll be this week, and it's always packed with former 9th graders. I was someone who left after 8th, and to tell you the truth, I probably shouldn't have. I was in a rush to, you know, get to the boarding school scene and honestly kind of missed out on an experience that I think would have been really good for me. I had 2 siblings who did the 9th grade program, and they loved it, and they got so much out of it. So as someone who's gone through the system and seen it for a while and jumped and then seen others keep going, I would heavily encourage you to consider it. 9th grade it's definitely worth your time.
I think about what Max was saying before, too, in terms of public speaking is a real strand. And when you tell yourself you're capable of public speaking, you can speak publicly because you know it's sort of what's expected of you. And when I think about how we title our student leaders, but we tell them they're leaders, and so they see themselves as leaders. And so from that moment on, they become leaders. So sometimes it's the language and how you sort of envision yourself and know what's expected of you, that all of a sudden you really just embrace that role. Okay, we're getting to the end. If I can only turn the paper. Okay, here we go. Okay, so for Liz and Marshall, so you are both advisors who teach students in both 8th and 9th grades. And how does knowing them across 2 years allow you to stretch them even further? And when thinking about it, what might be lost if they were navigating high school level work and a new environment simultaneously?
I think these two young folks might be able to speak to how sometimes it's even more fun as a ninth grade teacher to stretch them past their breaking point. For global studies, their first unit is effectively a survey of the Western world. Before we kind of pop around and hit every other geographic region, we really zoom in on Europe and really go from ancient Greece effectively through the Cold War. I've taught you for over a year, and I hit them with a timeline section on a very tough test that required a lot of memorizing, but also more importantly, a sense of sequence and cause and effect. And I don't suspect you were thrilled with me, but I've got to say, it was so impressive to see what these kids are capable of. This was truly a high school, probably AP level test, and first one of the year. And these two, and actually the vast majority of students, they absolutely excelled. And even the students who didn't quite hit their mark, it's so fun to see them getting closer and closer. And also it gives you something as a teacher who's worked with these kids for well over a year, gives you something to work on. So again, the higher the bar you raise, they can meet it. And you guys, in fact, I would argue, wherever the bar is, you always well supersede it. So as a teacher, you just got to keep raising it. That I think is the key. Sorry.
So I'm a ninth grade advisor this year. I have been for most of my time here. And one of the things I do at the beginning of the school year is I have a one-on-one conference with each student at which I ask them to set goals for the year. Academic, obviously, social, athletic, and anything else. And it kind of gives us a benchmark where I can check in with them throughout the year and say, how's it going? But I think it's so important for them to identify those goals for themselves. It's something really, someone mentioned self-advocacy earlier, and that is really one of the skills that these remarkable 14 and 15-year-olds come up with. They have that ability to self-reflect. One last thing I want to mention before I give up this mic is how so many of our programs in the ninth grade are so mission aligned. They are in many ways the culmination of our mission, and the part of the mission of Country School, which I expect all of you know by heart, is, it was kind of a joke, is to make a positive contribution to the world. And I feel as if I just feel so gratified. I have the best job ever because I get to help to mold these human beings into people who are really going to wind up being these fantastic citizens, not only of their next school, but of wherever they go. And the alumni, some of the alumni folks are here. When you look at what Country School students do after they leave here, especially those who stay for ninth grade, no shade, Marshall, go on to be really remarkable people.
Okay, final question for both Ryan Marie Fell and Cecilian Max, who it's only appropriate to end with the two of you. So for Ryan Marie and Fell, what do you think is unique about, and I know you've probably spoken to different aspects, so if you feel as though you have nothing more to add, then that's okay too. What is unique about ninth grade at NCCS that wouldn't necessarily be gained in another high school environment? Knowing what you know now, would you make the same choice for your children? Ryan Marie.
Absolutely, we would make the same choice. And okay, I'll give a little story. This morning, I went in my son Chase's, who's our current ninth grader. I went into his room to wake him up for school, and he had his football on the bed next to him. And I woke him up and I said, "Buddy, why is your football in here?" And he goes, "I don't want to forget it for recess." And I love that because they're excited about recess here in ninth grade. They're not having recess at other ninth grade programs. These kids play, and I love that. And all of that is to say that this just helps them keep younger for one more year. And this is one of the last years in their life where they really are still a kid. I mean, they really still are. They do have that golden retriever puppy energy. But at the same time, they're very broad-minded and they're able to grapple with concepts. But, just keeping them young, I think there's so much value there.
I think Ryan Marie said it well. I'm repeating myself, but just that idea that you really do end up staying younger longer, and you also mature earlier. Like the opportunities you get in a ninth grade program, you're not going to get in another 9 through 12 high school. I'm repeating myself, but I really think it's worth bearing or mentioning again. It really is. And the other thing I would mention, which is somewhat off topic, is that first, I remember when I was in school. I mean, school's obviously evolved a lot over the years. I remember when I was taking French class in 9th grade, and a teacher telling me, if you don't do better, you're going to flunk this class, and I'm going to see you over the summer. And I remember thinking, well, I have my 3 kids here. They were all very different learners. My daughter would come home with her homework, and it was kind of like, it was in a good way. This doesn't sound terrible, but she'd come home and kind of dump her notes out as if it was a box of rocks and just sit there and just pound away with her notes, trying to get everything done perfectly. One of our sons, just executive function-wise, just kind of really struggled to find his way, and our other son he just kind of did it on his own. But it was just interesting to see that you're in a school where you've got 3 very different learning types, and all 3 were supported so well all through those years, all the way through 9th grade. So 9th grade, not 9th grade specific, but I want to add that in.
Okay, question for Cece and Max. If you could tell a current 7th or 8th grader one thing about 9th grade, what would it be?
Sure, I'll start. Yeah. I would say just embrace it. I mean, it's so special to be a part of this 9th grade community where everyone, all your friends who you've been through multiple, and for me, many years with at this school, and as well as the teachers who are always there to support you and are here for you. It's just a really special community and a really special experience. I mean, we've already talked a lot about the expanded studies trips and the Outward Bound trip, Outward Action. And I don't know, I've just had so much fun in the start of the year, and I feel like I'm really sort of thriving. I mean, all the skills I've learned through essay writing in this, I believe, expository essay writing in English, writing and delivering research papers, I feel like it's really coming so much easier to me in my 9th grade year, and I continue to feel so well supported by my teachers and by my friends. Everyone's playing together at recess. Everyone's here for each other, and it's just an incredible experience, which I feel like it's hard to find anywhere else. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, I came here in 3rd grade, so if I had left in 8th, I would have been here for 6 years, and that's like almost half my life, and it just wasn't enough. I really wanted another year. I was like, I don't want to go. I mean, I was planning to stay. I'm such like a planner. Like in 3rd grade, I was like, yeah, I'm staying for 9th. I was like a little 8-year-old. I was like, oh yeah, totally, I'm staying here for 9th, and I had no idea what I was doing in my life, and the one thing I knew, I was like, yeah, I'm staying for 9th grade. So it's never been a choice for me. It's always just been a no-brainer. I mean, my sister had a really great experience, and what the parents touched on, definitely, it's like it gives you kind of an extra year. As someone who's going out of the country for high school, it's like I was not ready in 8th grade to leave because I'm not applying to any day schools. I only applied to boarding. So as an 8th grader, I just wasn't ready for that transition, but now as a 9th grader, I'm like really, really confident in myself as a young adult, and I'm sure that I can like navigate high school really well. And also things like we have lunches with Mr. Cooper as like a 9th grade advisory, and it ended like we had New Canaan chicken, and then we played foosball, and then it ended with a really high stakes Uno game that I won, by the way. And in advisory too, like we play Pictionary, and we have this running tally on the board. There's like 1,000 tick marks of like which team is winning Pictionary. So it's just stuff like that just like it's so much fun, and me and Max both, we just love it so much. So that's why any 7th or 8th grader, you should stay for 9th grade, 100%.
Here we go. Well, thank you so much to this panel. I appreciate all of the insights offered here from each of you, and I know an hour is a lot to ask, especially on a Monday morning. So we are so appreciative for each of you showing up this morning and sharing your own experiences. Are there any questions from the audience? Well, that's a testament to how successful you are at tackling all these responses. Thank you to everyone.